Greetings, everybody. David Avocado Wolfe here with Jeffrey Smith, Institute for Responsible Technology. We've had so much, almost an explosion of GMOs and Roundup and glyphosate over the last, I would say,
23 years.
23 years.
Yeah. That's how long I've been working on it.
What is happening? What's the effect of all this? What's
Well,
going to be the effect on future generations?
The future generations thing is so scary. I interviewed, for as part of our live Facebook, Dr. Skinner from Skinner Labs in Washington, and he injected rats, pregnant rats, with Roundup. Not something that I recommend, but it was interesting what happened. The pregnant rats that got injected were okay. Their offspring were okay. The grandchildren suffered. The great-grandchildren suffered more. He never did the research on the great-great-grandchildren. 90% of the great-grandchildren, 90% of them had serious disorders. Prostate problems, kidney problems, obesity. All these female rats were dying during childbirth. Some of the offspring were dying during childbirth. Complete disaster. So that's one example of what the future generation. Now we also have a situation where so many people are infertile. In the film Secret Ingredients, there's so many different people that get better from diseases and disorders when they switch to organics, thereby avoiding GMOs and Roundup. There's this one chiropractor who has a clinic, and she ends up seeing a lot of infertile couples because they hear about her word of mouth. Why? Because they end up not infertile. She not only does the chiropractic, she puts them all on an organic diet. All of them on an organic diet with the chiropractic. She's in the film, you'll hear 92 out of 92 couples who followed her protocol, who were infertile before, have kids. When I called her after that, it was up to 123. No fails. Now the infertility rate in this country is skyrocketed.
And people are paying a lot of money to figure out how to have a child and how to conceive a child. But this issue of the presence of glyphosate and the other chemicals in our environment, for some reason, it's just the system does not allow that conversation to happen. That this is causing an infertility crisis.
Yes, absolutely. And there's also birth defects. When glyphosate or Roundup is sprayed in Argentina by plane, it ends up landing in the population of the peasants. Their birth defect rate in a bigger region was up 300 or 400%. In a small area, up 70-fold. 70-fold. And one Dr. Carrasco, he injected chicken embryos and frogs with the same glyphosate and got the same type of birth defects that he was seeing in his countrymen. It was absolute disaster, and actually figured out the pathway. So he could name the pathway, how the glyphosate causes those particular birth defects. So we're talking, and the other thing is, there's a very strong correlation between glyphosate or Roundup and autism. I was talking to Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT.
I remember her, yeah.
And she said that she understood, took on autism as her project. She was a PhD at MIT. She's an expert at big data.
Yeah.
She pulled big data about autism, understood what was happening in the body. She has another degree in biology. So she said to me, I knew exactly why the autistic children were having those particular symptoms because of what was happening in their body, but I couldn't figure out the environmental insult that caused it. So she pulled all the big data of all of the toxins, all the agricultural toxins and the others, and tried to find out if that was causing the changes in the physiology, and nothing fit hand in glove. She took a 2-hour lecture from a friend of mine, Dr. Don Huber, professor emeritus from Purdue, and she said she left there knowing the answer. It was glyphosate. Everything that he had said about the nature of what glyphosate does as a chelator, an antibiotic, etc., it fit perfect. And she has put a model together that's stunning. So now when we talk about like pediatricians saying that since GMOs and Roundup were introduced, there's all these new complex problems, new cognitive problems. When we look at the future generations, we're looking at the possibility of lower birth rates, possibility of massive epigenetic inherited problems, and also cognitive issues that are all likely related to GMOs and Roundup. So we need, it's a very, very intense situation, David, and it's like we don't have the luxury of waiting around till more tests are needed. No, more action is needed. It's not going to be a bad thing if you switch to organic for whatever reason, and the future generations will benefit.
That's so great. Eat organic, folks. Make sure you have the best food ever, right? And this is so important. It's like people say, you know, well, it costs more. Well, we're going to pay now or we're going to pay a lot more later. And you heard the research. It could be even grandchildren or great-grandchildren down the line. So we have got to clean up our diets and clean up our environments now. Unfortunately, we can't rely on the government to protect us, so we got to protect ourselves, and we got to work towards the permanent banning of glyphosate all over the world, and the permanent banning of GMOs. I'm David Avocado Wolfe. This is Jeffrey Smith with the Institute for Responsible Technology. I'll leave you all his links down below. Check him out. This guy's amazing, doing great work on Earth.